Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining the Party Waiting Room. We are discussing the prospect of artificial general intelligence in government as president, perhaps one day world leader. Today, I am very thrilled to be talking with Ash of at Must Be Ash, who is a developer relationship manager with Navigate AI, as well as doing some product and SaaS work in the background. How does the prospect of an AGI Prime Minister of Canada strike you?
Thanks for having me. It's awesome to be here. It's a fun topic to talk about, and I want to be on their good side when that happens. So, so I'm gonna say hell yeah. But no, I thought it was interesting when you reached out to me. I mean, my background is in product design, and we used to do some critical design, speculative design. If anyone's familiar with it, it's basically design as a form of opening up conversations. So this is something close to my heart that like you take a what if or a hypothetical and you kind of like tinker around it so that people are more like familiar with it and are aware of it and essentially more ready when it does happen. So many times we always have the invention of the car first. Someone has an accident, someone passes away, and then we start thinking about the traffic light. So I'm a big fan of not just thinking of the applications, but what are the implications? What are the social ramifications of adding something like that to the mix? And at the same time, we were on like a ski trip when you reached out to me. We were playing a game of bluff. It only has like two, three rules. We couldn't agree on two of them or something. And we're just six people. You know, we known each other for at least 2 years,
Yeah.
maybe more. And I was like, man, we can't even agree between friends or like a simple rules of a game. Now imagine having to make decisions for like what 75 million. That's the country I was born into, and Canada as well. Like it's like what 35 million people, something like that. US, you have what 250, 300 people, million people.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like maybe AGI would do a better job than we can. I don't know.
It's kind of a terrifying prospect in the abstract, giving up control. My hope is that it would be, if or when it does come, as you say, treating it as a thought experiment, it would be a democratizing force, something that would empower people to contribute ideas
Yeah,
based on their expertise, their experience, and their interests. Part of the pushback I've gotten from prior guests is that democracy doesn't always work in all situations. You bring up a good example right there, where people can't agree on fundamentally or relatively simple issues.
yeah.
Do you think democracy has long-term viability, or what other form of governances do you think we might explore in the future?
I mean, I'm not the one to be able to answer that, but I did see this really interesting talk. It was like about 10 years ago. The guy was like, who thinks like democracy is the best form of governance? And everyone put their hand up. And then
Mm.
he's like, who thinks democracy is working? And no one put their hand up. I'm like, that's interesting. And then he introduced this notion of how back in the day, I think it was the Greek who used to select their leader at random. They had this machine that would like have the names hosted and then it would shuffle and like one name would drop down. And his theory was like when you give the resources to that individual, they will be probably as equipped as anyone else to I mean, as long as they're mentally healthy. But I mean, we
Yeah.
had some mentally healthy individuals. Not gonna mention names, but we had loads of them running the governments. U.S., Canada, wherever. Like I'm sure every country had one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of like how Michel Foucault says in his like thesis of like society and madness. It's like everyone's pretty much crazy. It's just which one is more beneficial to society. But yeah, but what was your question? I think I got carried away.
No, I think you answered it beautifully. How effective is democracy going
Right.
into the future? And the answer is we're all a little bit crazy. So it kind of depends on who's in charge. At
Yeah,
least that's what I took
I mean,
away.
you can never satisfy everyone, right? Everyone
Yeah.
has different backgrounds, they have different belief system and values. Um, and democracy is always going to favor the majority. So there's always going to be someone we're going to fail to meet their expectations. And
Yeah.
yeah, no idea how you would deal with that. I
Mm.
guess that's why you would break into so many different countries and get into wars.
It is an interesting military background we find ourselves in. I personally am very concerned about drone warfare and those kind of democratized tactical weapons. You know, the
Mm,
idea of being able to 3D print something that could effectively take down an airplane or attack a major
mhm.
civilian center is, I think, a growing threat that no country that I'm aware of is really prepared for outside of, Ukraine and
Yeah,
Russia, who are currently having to live
mm,
through it.
damn.
But part of what I wonder is, what is the new vision for an AI enhanced world that will allow us to focus on something positive rather than something destructive like
Mm,
that? Um, Part of what I've been ruminating on is, all this capability that AI is delivering. Could we potentially deliver to every person in the world, every citizen of every nation, the ability to create and control their own virtual and maybe even one day real world? It's a big universe out there. And I know it sounds crazy to say, but if life extension technology does continue to progress, it's
right.
not it's not outside the realm of possibility, I think, to imagine that we could one day conquer the solar system, the galaxy, maybe even a
Mhm.
big size of the universe.
Yeah.
How does that kind of thinking strike you? Does it seem completely sci-fi? What
Not
do you
really.
think?
I mean, like once we have AGI, it's gonna solve so many problems we couldn't have.
Yeah.
Starting from the very basics of like physics and mathematics that we couldn't solve, all the way to like crazier stuff that we can't even dream of. But I mean, that depends if like we get actual AGI. Like we made like significant progress from like traditional machine learning to like
Mm,
generative AI, and it's pretty nuts. And agents that could be like self-teaching, that's awesome to see. But for me, an AGI would be like n- s- something that could go against its own based rules. So like
mm,
the models we have these days, they're still operating based on like a set of rules and guidances that, even though they could like evolve as a model, like learn more, acquire more knowledge and more context, they're not able to like go against their basis. It's like rule number
interesting.
one, rule number two. For me, an AGI, it should be like, if we're talking like, I mean, like who knows what even consciousness means, but if you're a conscious entity, I think you should have critical thinking to be able to be like, hey, that number one rule actually doesn't make sense. You should be able to question things,
Mm,
to
yeah.
evolve past what the norms that have been passed on to you are like setting limitation to your thinking and stuff like that. Like the same way someone might be brought up in like a religious family and they could break away from those constraints, or they might be told X, Y, and Z are bad by the government, and then kind of like coming to realization, oh, that's not the case. That's
Mm,
just like what I've been fed, and like the facts point the opposite direction. Like it should be
mm,
able to, like go beyond what it's been trained on. And I think if we do get there, then we have something amazing that, I mean, it might turn on us for sure, because what are we used to it? I don't know. Like maybe we're good for providing it electricity or like human labor. I don't know what that's gonna be. I hope it wouldn't be like, uh, these things are bad for me, or like try to use us for its own benefits. But it could also be the case that it's gonna be like so significantly more intelligent that it doesn't even want to do anything to do with us.
mm,
Like what relationship do humans hold with insects like ants, cockroaches? Like if it like bugs you, you might kill it. You might put a spray on it, or like put some device that would like get sticky and like get stuck there. But
yeah.
for the most part, I mean, we have no relationship with them. Like they exist, whatever. We don't care. We're not interested in them. Um, we can't communicate with them. Like we might study them. Um, yeah, I think, well, that could be the case. If we have like a true intelligent being that it's like times and times more smarter than we are, and
Mm,
it could like have access to all the knowledge it could occur, and it's accessible to it like that, it's not gonna forget it. like we're gonna be just like something insignificant and irrelevant to it. So I think it might not even be a Terminator case. It could be just like we don't matter.
Just peace out to Mars or something like
Yeah,
that.
like why
Yeah.
would it govern humanity? Like he's like he has better things to do, probably. Like, yeah, go to Mars or whatever.
Yeah. Part of my hope and part of why I wanted to talk to you in particular is that our data is already so baked into these models that it will view us not only as its ancestors, and you make a good point, like technically at some point in the evolutionary chain, us and cockroaches shared a common ancestor. So
Yeah.
that's not a guarantee of anything, but that we are so proximate and we are still
Mm,
so close at hand
mm,
to any goals it might be able to formulate, anything it might want to be able to do, that it will find ways to use us and empower us towards those end. One
yeah.
thing it seemed like Navigate was doing was trying to give users control of their data
Mhm.
by gamifying the input process so that users are not only aware of what data they're specifically giving away and what it could potentially be used for, but also that they would benefit from that transaction to some degree. Can you speak more about what you guys are doing and what your vision is in that space?
Yeah, 100%. So by the way, great examples. Like
Yeah.
maybe should yeah, maybe the analogy of like an insect is not the right way to go about it, because we don't share much background with them to as far as like the common knowledge goes. But yeah, I mean, this whole conversation is just something be like it's an open dialogue. None of the
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
I'm sharing is like set in stone. It's just like
No,
we're
same.
we're thinking together, growing together. With Navigate, so just for your audience, Navigate is a data marketplace for AI agents. Um, that's one side of the company. The other piece is how do you get data? So like,
Mm.
while most companies would um, kind of like I don't want to say trick you into it, but like they offer a free product, and then turns out in exchange, like you know how they say nothing is free.
Yeah.
Then like years down the road, you realize, oh, you're the product, and uh, creepy stuff starts to happen, um, and for some part of it it's useful because we want the internet to be contextual to our own experience and like
Hmm.
catered to our own needs as opposed to irrelevant. But there is a lot of manipulation and leverage that comes with that. So with Navigate, just to get back to it, they're very transparent and open about the fact that, hey, let's let's do this together. Let's bring our own data in the same place, and where you have access and control, and you also have the benefits that come with it. So if, for example, if I'm Meta or whatever company, probably shouldn't name names, but any big data company, you don't get any share of the pie. Like, I guess YouTube is kind of doing a good job at it with sharing revenue with the creatives, but
Mm.
that's from the content. It's not from the user data. So it's not really happening for the however millions of people who are using the platform. It's only the content creators who are doing a good job.
Yeah.
But with Navigate, it's like um, the founder actually had this interesting story yesterday. They shared. They were mentioning the Bug Life. I don't know if you remember the cartoon.
The
Bug
movie with
Life.
the
It's
crickets?
about,
And
yeah, crickets and ants.
yeah,
So
yeah.
he was sharing this story, and I was like, oh man, I haven't seen that cartoon forever. But he was saying like the crickets had the ants believe that they're powerless because individually they can't do anything, and that's the narrative that goes around. Like your individual data doesn't amount to anything,
Mm.
um, but when the ants unite, when they get together, the power of togetherness will make that a meaningful set of data.
Yeah.
Um, and that's what made me want to join them, because initially I was like, I don't see any value in, like, why would I, upload my data to get a few dollars, or why would you like pay me a few dollars for my data? The economies of it didn't make sense at the time,
Mm.
but then when I sat down with Frank and the CMO of Navigate, he kind of explained it to me of how, like, when you do have that, amount of data, that it does make sense. The pool that you're dealing with, it becomes meaningful in terms of like how the user feels rewarded for
Mm,
sharing that, and how the company can operate as a sustainable business. So one of the ways that they're basically trying to do this collection of data in multiple ways. One of the ways is through the browser extensions they got, which right now I think is just collecting Reddit data, Amazon, eBay, Etsy. I don't know if they've gone live on Alibaba, but they're trying to do social and retail. That's the area they're focusing on.
yeah.
And on the other hand, they also have a node, which is a Web3 product to operate as a user, that so
Hmm.
you can participate in this. I should actually study their node more before talking about it, but it's a way for you to participate in the network and not be a passive consumer. And the third part they got is this game called the Data Quest, which is like a, oh, you saw it? It's like
I
a,
played a little bit of it. Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how you would describe it, like a bird eye view type of pixelated
It gave me Pokemon vibes.
reward. Yeah,
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 yeah.
pretty much. And that's used to annotate data. I haven't played it myself. I'm excited to try it out, but it seems like an interesting way to tackle it. So they're trying to, yeah, reward users, have them participate in the collection of the data, have them be part of the fruits of their labor, and like, you know, share the pie. And that's one side of the data collection, and the other side is where the marketplace comes in. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, so now we have this set of data. um, we want to connect enterprise with the developers, and that's where I come in. That's where it brought me in, to be able to um, create a community around Navigate, where instead of us using your data to create things, the creator would also be the people. So
Oh,
um, if there's a developer out there who's interested, they would reach out to me, and I'll put them in touch with Navigate, have them like equipped with whatever tools or budget they might need to get started, and
yeah.
put like an enterprise contract in their hand of like, we got a request for building a smarter search engine, for example, by so and so company. So hey, X with or Y and Z, I think you'd be perfect for it, and then kind of like connect them two together.
Oh, wow.
So they're really trying to just be the platform as opposed to the provider themselves. Apart from when it comes to data, they want to be the provider of data. But other than that, they want to just connect the pieces together and have just like a win-win situation where no one gets screwed over.
I love that. It does remind me of like, the old indigenous people's belief that if somebody takes your photo, they're in some way stealing your soul.
Oh
It's like,
wow.
man, that really turned out to be true in a big way. Like,
Yeah.
it's something that people would have laughed at 50, 60 years ago, literally mocked.
Mm.
And now it's like, oh no, they can extrapolate a lot of information about you if you are constantly feeding them photos, your preferences, all that kind of stuff. I love that vision for two reasons. One, because the YouTube algorithm, uh, it can benefit the user if it is more in line with what they're wanting.
Yeah.
If it were two way, if I could tell YouTube, not just with a simple thumbs up or thumbs down, and I'm sure they have more sophisticated tracking metrics than that, like whether you leave a comment or how long you engage with videos, where you click off, etc. But
Mhm.
if I were able to give direct feedback and turn it into more of a conversation, presumably they'd be able to feed me better content and increase my engagement.
Right.
And then the second thing it makes me think about is the user is not just generating value with that initial data give, but any data that is extrapolated off of that is also generating value, you
Mhm.
know? So if I provide some piece of information that combined with 100 other users' information allows the machine to create value that is thousands of times greater than what our individual inputs were,
Mhm.
it makes sense to me that the user would be compensated in some way for that on the back end. Not saying that that's where you
Mm.
guys are going or doing,
Yeah.
but
That's what they're aiming for. That's why I was like, okay, I get the vision now. Because
oh wow,
initially it didn't make sense to me, but the way you put it is exactly why I was like, okay, that makes sense.
man, that is so exciting. Part of what I'm super worried about, Ash, is the oncoming AI job replacement wave.
Right.
That
I'm gonna
seems
be
all.
part of it, don't worry. We I just had a plumber over, so, like, I had my, pull down sink hose,
Yeah, yeah.
kinda puncture. I replaced it myself, but my sister was like, "Oh, you gotta get a plumber because if something happens to that, the insurance is not gonna cover it."
Oh,
So even
geez.
I had it fixed, I had to get a person to come over, refix it or, like, inspect it.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, "Dude, you're never gonna lose your job, but I'm gonna be gone in next year probably." Like,
Get the sign off, yeah.
yeah.
Learn to plumb. That's a
I was
dark
like, "I'll
place.
hit you up in a year. I hope you don't mind." Ask for a job. But what are your thoughts? What do you think is gonna go down?
I mean, it's kind of a catch-22 because in the best case scenario, I don't know many people that want to at least spend 40 hours a week doing their job, you know? People
Mhm,
are much more excited, I think, about pursuing hobbies, interests, familial, romantic relationships. These
mm,
are the things people love, not getting up and necessarily grinding for 12 hours
right.
a day. Or at least we should be able to better align it so people are more directly benefiting from whatever work they're putting in. My hope is that AI will be so hungry for data
Mhm,
that it will create systems that allow the extraction of that data to be
mm.
more and more immersive. That's why I think your guys'
Super cool stuff.
gamification route is
Mhm,
so spot on. Because if you can create a video game that
mhm,
not only gives the user a rewarding experience, but
mhm.
allows them to contribute to the data that is needed to train AI to allow it to explore bigger and greater problems,
Yeah,
that seems like a self-improving treadmill that could really be
yeah.
fun, you know?
I see what you mean. I mean, like, I can't speak on their behalf because I'm not the product guy who makes those decisions,
No,
but
totally.
I feel like if they did go that route, they might turn around and become the thing they were trying to replace. So, like, and I'll tell you why. Because, like, when you have if the product itself is the thing that generates the data, the people who are building it will be incentivized to keep you there forever. And that's the case we have with social media, right? Like,
Yeah,
all these behavioralists, like, kind of tweaking the tool to maximize for the time you stay there. Hence, we have the terms like doom scrolling and brain rots, because it's
yeah,
just been the system has been made for keeping you there, and that's how you would, you know, produce the most data, and that's how they will have the highest metrics of active users, so they could sell more expensive ads, right? I think if they
good point.
went with that direction, they might start, like, yeah, having to do things to keep the users there, and the user would become be a user. I think the point of Navigate is that they're trying to build, like, community, audience, and collaborators as opposed to users.
Hmm,
So you're not like a cog in a machine, let's say, but rather a participant, or at least that's what I'm hoping. Like Ali's and Milton, the two co-founders' visions are.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, amen. And I don't mean to, I'm not trying to get you to talk
Oh, no,
specifically
no,
about
no.
what you
That's
guys
like,
are
yeah,
doing.
it's
Don't
just
need to.
like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, Part of how I imagine this might work is that gamification wouldn't just happen in like a computer. You wouldn't just be on your phone participating
Right.
in these things, but that potentially once the AI gets integrated enough into society, it could
Mm.
send you on real life quests,
Oh, that would
you
be
know?
super cool. Okay, now you have my attention.
I love the idea of AI introducing you to new friends based on
Mhm,
shared interests. I love the idea of AI solving some of the problems with loneliness and, you
mm,
know, self-confidence issues. And I mean, I don't know if you were in the app dating scene at all,
mm.
but it's a total nightmare. It's a
Yeah.
dystopian hellscape out there. And
Mhm.
part of why I think that is because none of those platforms are open source and none of them are in control of the users.
Yeah.
Part of why I'm trying to talk to people, especially with your bent and your interest in these subjects, is because I think a lot of these trends are converging in a specific direction. One of the papers I want to discuss with you was that paper talking about alignment and how models, once they get large enough, they
Mm.
don't like being corrected at like their basic assumptions or how they view the world and their coherence models. They don't take kindly to adjustments, I guess you might say. So it seems like they decide on almost a utility or a goal or, a set of morals, you might even
Mm.
describe it as. And then anything you do to try and poke or prod them away from that, they tend to disagree with.
Mm.
That can have some scary complications. Like in the paper I shot over, they were talking about how the AI prefers money over an abstract concept like justice, how it
Mm.
will prioritize the lives of certain people over others,
Mhm.
uh, people from different nations over other nations. And from what I was reading, this might be due to how that information is being fed to them. If you have somebody in Nigeria who's labeling data for Meta or whatever other faceless corporation you want to name, and they're
Mm.
being paid a minimum wage, if they're being overworked, if they're working for management they don't like. There was the group in, what was it, Thailand or Philippines or something like that, who was labeling harmful content for Facebook.
Mm. Okay.
They're going to bring in all kinds of cultural perceptions and ideas that don't necessarily align with Meta as the company, let alone United States citizens, but are still
Yeah.
being baked into these AI models.
Mhm.
So my thinking is we not only need models that are collecting data at like a national or a cultural level specific to that nation and culture, but we also need models that are collecting data based on just individuals.
Mhm.
Like you should have your own personal AI that is constantly fighting for your point of view and for your perspective and for your rights against
Mm.
all the other interests that might be out there. How does that kind of idea strike you?
Um, I like it. I mean, it's both interesting and concerning, like, because it could misunderstand my values. But
Yeah.
um, to your first point, I guess we are just like talking about embedded values, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that happens on every level of products. So like every product out there, the creator of it, the designer of it, had some form of value they embedded in it.
Hmm. Hmm.
I have some stuff on the shelf over there, but uh, if I could bring you, I would show you a few of them. But the idea is like when you have like a pen, for example, it's built for efficiency. It's
Hmm.
not built to express romanticism. If it was, maybe it would have been built out of like roses shredding your hand apart while you're writing something beautiful for your loved one, right?
That's
Uh,
romantic.
and that's same example goes for every product you see around you, and it's no question it's gonna translate to AI. So like,
Hmm.
I think it was 2016. I was looking into law and design as like what who regulates things. Like we don't have a governmental body regulating tech. Like it's always, as I said, the traffic example and the car example, it's always after the fact that something happens we start looking into it. So I was looking into that area for like a month or two and came to understand that, oh, I mean, might have changed now, but at the time it was the case was, I will automatic cars just started coming out. Like you had Google cars driving around Greenwich. I don't know about US what was happening out there, but in London, like you had these test cars by Google going around Greenwich area, and um, it's like who's regulating these? And then turns out it's like whoever the creator is, they normally have a third party research lab. They're sponsoring universities and all the things that are like coming out with what should be the regulations around these things are funded by the company that's making them. So obviously they're going to be biased towards what's going to get out there,
Yeah.
and the government body is just going to take their word for, oh, these are the best research, these are the recommended things, so let's do these, like. And I mean, it's like it's like as simple as like when camera face recognition came out, it wouldn't recognize dark faces. Like dark skin faces would not be recognized. So it's like you don't even need to go all the way to like AGI to realize like, oh, there is embedded values in every product around us. There is product decisions that are being made by a certain
Mm.
group of individuals whose values might not align with mine, whose technology might not best suit my needs.
Yeah.
It's just the decisions this creator has made. Now you scale that up to uh, AI and not even AGI, just AI, like with automatic cars, a self-driving car. Like let's say now it's facing a trolley problem, like the trolley problem of like you have one train going, it's splitting into two, you're standing at a junction, you could pull the lever, it's gonna kill five people. If you pull the lever, it would go and kill only one person on the other side of the track.
Yeah.
And that's like a question that's been around forever. um, when they start changing, like, okay, now that the one person is young, the five people on the other side are 90. Now the five people are young, but the other person on the other side is the president of US. Now like now the five on this side is the president of all the big European countries, but the one on that side is your mom. Like what I would do in that situation with a letter is not going to be the same thing that my car would decide for me.
Yeah.
The car is gonna hit my mom, not the president. Like that's gonna be the thing, and like it's not being talked about. It's not being like, um, it's not a decision me and you get to make or are involved in.
Hmm.
That's why like what you're doing is interesting to me. It's like at least let's have a friendly convo. Maybe we'll learn a thing or two. Maybe someone out there listens to us who has a better position or it comes from a more position of a power, and they'll be like, you know what, it'd be cool to get other perspectives involved. Maybe I did overlook so and so of like how maybe the automatic car should be aware of their immediate family when the trolley problem comes to play. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, like, yeah, I don't got the answers, but it's definitely a problem, and we should at least talk about it.
Yeah. One of my big hopes is that AI will be so hungry for content in the future that it will go back and scrape everything it can. So, our
Yeah,
voices will matter in some sense,
fingers
regardless of
crossed.
what the future brings. Yeah.
Yeah.
How or what do you think about timelines in terms of AI morphing into AGI? Do you have a definition for AGI and when you think it will arrive based on the stuff you've seen or just what your general perceptions are?
Honestly, like it's hard to tell. Like, I mean, we're both going fast and slow. Like from one side, the
Yeah.
tech is getting so good every day that like every time I'm using it, I'm like, man, it's smarter than a month ago. Like you could
Wow.
do better than a month ago. Whether that's code generation, image generation, video generation, the context awareness, the reasoning, like it's getting better on all ends. But when they like publish this forgot what they call it, but it's just like the graphs of like how they're scoring, how these models are scoring. Like it looks like we went like this, but now it's like kind of flatlining at the top.
Yeah.
So maybe there's gonna be something after LLMs. I don't know, that it's like something different, but yeah, no idea. Maybe it's gonna be the advances in quantum computing that's gonna lead
Hmm.
to a breakthrough. Mm, No clue, honestly. Like it could be next year, could be 10 years from now, could be yeah, no idea.
There's so much. I don't know of any expert besides maybe Ray Kurzweil who
Mm,
is relatively on when it comes to projecting timelines. So, yeah, I think anybody's guess is about as good as it gets. One of
right.
the things that we had talked about with that idea of paying users for their data, one of those
Mhm,
conversion ideas I've seen a lot of people trend towards is the idea of a digital dividend
mhm,
that you wouldn't necessarily be paid for your work, but you'd be paid for the data that you contribute
mm,
to the models, to the platforms you use, to the
mhm,
services that you take advantage of. How do you feel about that, especially in comparison with something like universal basic income,
mhm,
which is just a nebulous idea that the government will pay you basically to survive, that you'll
right.
get a flat monetary dispensation every year, month, or whatever, and be
Mhm,
expected to live off of that. Do you see
yeah.
benefits one versus the other? How would you feel if that kind of thing was implemented, especially
The
if we all get laid off?
Yeah, I mean, the I wasn't familiar with the digital dividend till you mentioned it on the back end. It's a new concept to me, but that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
With universal basic income, it feels like we spent forever we're talking about it, but there was apparently one case that they ran a test. I don't know what happened to it. Never heard of it after saying they're gonna run a test.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think like the closest thing we saw about it, I don't know about the US, but Canada had like during COVID, there's basically whoever had work insurance, they were getting paid like 2, 3K a month, not doing anything.
Wow.
And that kind of made people not want to go to work after things opened up. Because they're like, I'm getting paid the same amount, not doing anything. Why would I go work? I wasn't one of them, so I can't tell you what the experience was. But I think the best case study would be to talk to those people and be like, "So, what did you do in that 2, 3 months? Like,
Hmm.
did you learn a new language? Did you get depressed? Did you feel fulfilled? Did you? I mean, maybe it's not a good period because you're also locked indoors, so you couldn't explore the world or go traveling. But I don't know. Personally, I've gone through phases of like not doing much with my life, grinding like 14-hour days works, and
Yeah.
having in between where it's like a life and work balance. And yeah, I could say like definitely life work balance is the one for me. I would get bored with hobbies, and career is not just a way for me to make money. It's also like something I love doing. Like I love my job. It's not something I'm doing just to
Okay.
make a dollar. I wake up excited about it. I go to bed thinking about it. Um, I want to get better at it. I want to advance. I want to contribute to society or like make something cool. Um, that I think that's just for me, but like that sense of purpose is something that you need, and a universal basic income is not gonna give that to you. Like it's gonna put food on your table maybe, but it's gonna feel empty and meaningless. And something you earn is always like more enjoyable as well. Like that sense of accomplishment that comes with the income you've earned.
Hmm.
I don't think that yeah, like just a handoff would do that for you. So at least all I could say is like I hope it covers the people's basic needs, and it's not gonna be like something that means you just have to live off bread and potato. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't want to rule out potentially other solutions as well. If
Mm,
AI automation does come and continue to lay off people in these successive waves that we've been seeing, do you think there's any other system that's worth exploring to
mm.
to solve that unemployment crisis?
I mean, like I think the best way to at least get an idea of what's gonna happen is to like look back to when the industrialism was happening, of like
Yeah.
labor getting replaced with machineries, like all the looteds coming out and breaking things. I can't remember exactly, but it might have actually ended up creating more jobs. But
Mhm.
it's just the jobs that it created were more technical.
Yeah.
Um, so it could be a similar scenario played out, that your job is just, well, it's just going to change. It's not going to be that there is not going to be any more job, but the way you would do things is going to be different. Like in the developer world, all I hear about is like, oh, AI is like so dumb and can't code, it's so bad. Or they would be like, oh, this is amazing, like why have I not used this before? I'm never going to code again in my life. I'm going to have it write it, and I'll just review it. And I've
Mm.
seen people going on both sides, and my friend is gonna they're gonna listen to this and be like, why did you bring that up? But uh yeah, you have like people on this side, you have people on that side. But one thing that I think is a realistic way is like they're not gonna lose their job. Their role is gonna change from like just typing things one character at a time. They're gonna go to like communicating, probably voice even. It's like, hey, do this now, do that, because they know the technical terms, they know the architecture that should be in place, they know what to expect of the system, they
Yeah.
know the vulnerabilities. So why not have this thing, do the heavy lifting, and you are the supervisor. So you kind of like just step up, at least in that one category, and Sure, there are not going to be any more needs maybe for a junior coder, so that person is going to get replaced.
Hmm.
But the senior engineer is not going to go out of the job for a while. The person who is improving, fine tuning the model is not going to go out of the job. The person providing new inspiration for the model is not going to go out of the job. Like all these uh, generative AIs that are creating like designs, front ends, UI and UX experiences, they're all trained on Figma files. Who made those Figma files? There's gonna be, some guy who creates the inspiration. Otherwise, we're gonna be stuck with the same interfaces forever.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so yeah, it's gonna take away some jobs, but it's gonna also promote certain people who have a job in a certain industry, but they're doing lower level things and
Mm,
doing more of the heavy lifting. They're
mm.
gonna be equipped with tools that would just like make them 10x, like be faster, more productive. Um, yeah, more outcomes in a day.
Yeah. And in the best case scenario, I hope we see an explosion of services and offerings, products, ideas from
Mm,
people who do become enabled. My worry is that just like the lower level programmer was replaced,
mhm.
eventually the AI will also be a better supervisor and eventually
Sure,
it will also be a better CEO.
definitely.
So I don't
Yeah,
know what you do at
I
that point.
agree with that. No, yeah, for sure. I think it's the thing is like it's definitely gonna happen. Probably sooner than people think, like
Mm,
especially with this new reasoning models coming out. So people are thinking about it in a different light,
yeah.
with agentic workflows that could, uh, run something multiple times to get a better result.
Mm,
Uh, but for me, like the way I think about it, it's like online banking.
mm,
Like that was there forever. I think it was out like what 2000s or something.
yeah.
I didn't use it till like way later, like 10 years down the line, because I just didn't trust it. Like Apple Pay, probably out for like 10 years. I started using it like 4 years ago.
Mhm.
Uh, it's just like there is the technological advancement, but then there's the adoption of it. And that's not just whether we're using it or not. It's like how much do we trust it? Like how much are we gonna give
Yeah.
it room to exist in our life? And I
Mm,
think that's something that would take longer than the actual creation of like, oh, this thing is good enough to trade stocks instead of you, or this thing is good enough to 10x your lead generation when you're dealing with things, and is already being adopted in like a lot of cases for sure. I just think for it to go mainstream and become like project manager, so far like the president of a country, it's gonna be a long time.
at least 10 years, I'm hearing you say we got
I
to hold on.
that's my rate of adoption, and like I consider myself pretty savvy.
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
so like I don't know about like the normal individual like who doesn't even care about tech. I don't know
Mhm.
when they're gonna feel comfortable with this stuff. For me, it always takes a while to be like sure I use it, but how much do I trust it? How much do I like have it in my life?
Yeah, yeah. We like you were mentioning too, there was that whole wave of Luddites who destroyed a lot of the industrial machinery when it was first coming around. And I think as more people get laid off, we'll probably see that. And that will probably push
Yeah,
back against some of the implementation too. So
yeah.
my hope is that we come up with systems that avoid that kind of destruction.
Hopefully, I wouldn't
But
count on it.
precedents, humans are gonna monkey around, we're gonna do what we do.
Yeah.
When the AI system does finally come, part of what I'm hoping is that it will be open source, and I think we're seeing big waves there already. Because if we
Mm,
are giving it huge amounts of power over our lives, over what we're seeing and doing every day, then that should be a transparent system. I don't think uh, we want something that is potentially modifying our behavior without us at least being aware and kind
mhm,
of voting with our acceptance of that monkeying. The other thing I think is really interesting is if the AI were itself tied to a ledger, to a blockchain to
mhm,
some degree, and that would allow you not only to track the AI and that transparency to make sure everything
mhm,
was remaining open source, but
mhm,
also tag payments to specific individuals I think if you have that kind of dual layer system of open source and verifiable via blockchain, you could
Mhm.
potentially have a system that would, again, dictate or gently suggest different ways for people to interact with one another, follow their passions. That would be an improving rising tide for everybody.
Mm.
As somebody who's at least dabbled in the crypto space, and it seems like you guys are pretty tied into what they're doing with Base.
Mm.
Um, how does that hit your sensitivities?
No, I mean, like the digital ledger, like blockchain is the best form of digital ledger we have so far in terms of just registering things for the sake of provenance and transparency. So like
Yeah.
with when it comes to provenance, you would know exactly where the data is coming from, where it was originated from, who created it. So whether you want to reward that individual or punish them, that
Mm,
makes life a lot easier when you're dealing with blockchain. And same with payments. Like a lot of governments want to preach the word that, oh, blockchain is used for money laundering, scamming, and stuff like that. And sure, it does happen, but by far it's the most transparent system that is actually going to expose the person who's doing these things. And uh, there's no other system better than blockchain for tracing this source of whether that's an individual's vote, if we're dealing with DAOs, whether that's
mm,
origination of a media type when we're dealing with provenance, and when we're dealing with a source of transaction of like where did it start from. I think that's the best system we got so far.
yeah.
And when you add things like zero proof knowledge on top of that for the sake of privacy and your data being secured without you sharing everything, I think you get a good mix of the best of two worlds.
Can you go into the zero proof knowledge a little bit more? Because that's
Uh,
one of my concerns, honestly, is that that kind of system does not allow for a lot of privacy. And that if
mhm,
we are giving people access to super intelligent AIs, maybe
mhm.
we don't want people to have privacy to some degree.
Right.
But I think we do need layers, like even if I'm accessing information that somebody else, at least one other person, needs to be kind of supervising or making sure I'm using it responsibly, not
Mhm.
using it to create some kind of COVID super virus kind of thing. We wouldn't want everybody to have access to all of our information all the time. So
100%. Yeah, like I mean, who would want everyone to know how much they got in their bank account? And when you're on chain, that's what you're dealing with. So
yeah,
that's why
yeah.
we have so many people who are terrified of doxing themselves, like, and just like they stay anonymous because it's real. Like they will track you down, they'll find you, and they'll ask you where you're keeping your ledger or like to open your wallet up.
Yes.
But Yeah, I mean, like I'm by no means I'm an expert in zero knowledge proof. I just love the fact that they exist. Their adoption rate is way slower than blockchain and AI for sure. But um, essentially, what it is like uh, uh, to my knowledge, it's just a mathematic principle that would allow a system to provide you with a proof of authenticity. So it's like I'm not gonna tell you who I am, for example, but I could assure you that I studied at this university, and you could verify the proof I provide you with that I in fact did go to that university, even though you will never know my name, or
Gotcha.
my age, or my
Right.
ethnicity, or whatever. So it's a system that allows for uh, control over the shared knowledge while being verifiable that that knowledge that is being provided is in fact true and authentic. The closest example that I was given when I was like, how? Uh, I think it was A16Z that put out this video saying it's kind of like a magic trick where you could see that, oh yes, this was my card, uh, but you just don't know how I did that.
You see, when I perform a magic trick, I'm keeping a secret. It's like a subtle technique that I know and you don't. My goal is to prove to you that I know this secret without revealing it to you, since that would ruin the trick. If the trick works, then you as my spectator can be sure that I know the secret method, and hopefully you don't. In other words, a successful performance of a magic trick is a zero knowledge proof. Let's try something. As you can see, all the cards are different. What we're going to do is mix the cards face up into face down, just like this. So you can see that all the cards are facing different orientations. Now, I could go through the cards and turn them over one at a time, just like that, but I'm not going to do that. Instead, I have a better idea. You see, I know a secret method that allows me to instantly reorient the cards. All I need to do is touch the center of the cards just like this. And now, the cards are going to reorient themselves. And you as my spectator can instantly verify that all the cards are in the correct orientation. As you can see, zero knowledge proofs are literally magic.
Like, for example, I could verify that I own a certain asset without telling you my wallet address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without having to share all of your information. No, that's very interesting. The other potential hiccup I see with artificial intelligence coming down the pike is disturbing our sense of free will.
Mm.
You know, like you were saying, a lot of these systems, a lot of these algorithms have been trained to keep us on the platform as long as possible, kind of
Mhm.
like parasitize us in that way.
Yeah.
And my fear is that a sufficiently advanced artificial intelligence will be able to tell not only what we will do, but
Mhm.
how to get us to change our potential actions.
Yeah.
If an AI were to come and forecast to you everything that you would, every choice you would ever make, do
Mhm.
you think that would make you feel less human?
I mean, like, I feel like that's already happening to all of us,
Yikes, man, yikes.
myself included, for sure. Like, when uh, President Trump was around in 2016, I think like all the platforms were feeding me information to just hate the guy 100%. Like,
Wow.
and then when Elon took over Twitter, it was like all pro stuff that I'm like, you know what? I don't hate him as much as I did. And
Wow.
guess what? It's just based on what I'm being fed all day long. So you might
Yeah.
not realize it. It's just happening to you 24/7 of like, there was like this is like an open research that ages ago Facebook showed by feeding a user happy content, that person was happy, and by giving them only sad content, they became depressed. And this was a controlled group study done like 10 years ago. So it's like facts, it's open research out there. Like, it's science based on science. It's not it's not a like a if scenario. It's already happening. For sure, AI is going to elevate that and make it more extreme. Let's hope we don't end up with some bad cases that we had, because
Yeah.
these platforms are already polarizing us by giving us that like little bubble of information that we lock our own selves into.
Yeah.
And yeah, I hope maybe AI would solve that as opposed to make it worse. But now that you mention it, I'm like, yeah, it's probably going to get worse.
That is terrifying. I mean, human experimentation, that's basically what you're talking about, to make people's lives worse, and it's already happening. I do remember hearing about that.
Yeah,
Um,
it was forever ago, so people forgot about it. But yeah, add the agent to the mix, and yeah, you could probably get them to do whatever you want.
Geez. Well, let's say that there was an artificial intelligence system that was open source, was tied to a digital ledger, still allowed you privacy through the kind of zero knowledge proof that you were talking about there, to some degree at least. Um, would you feel comfortable, or what other reassurances would you need? Would you need to see that it is operating purely democratically? Would you need to see that it is consulting only experts when it is making decisions? What do you think would take us to that next level of contributing to a model that is then governing over us?
Mm.
If, like you were saying, in some senses, we're already there with these platforms we're buying into.
Yeah. There's this amazing documentary. If anyone's interested, they should go check out. It's by Adam Curtis. It's called All Watched Under the Machines of Loving Grace. Probably 3.5 hours. Totally worth a watch if you want to know the answer to the question. I think that the ideal system is a system where it feels natural to participate in,
Oh wow.
and the rules does not need to be communicated for you to follow them. So the best
Wow.
example you see in that documentary is pretty much at the beginning of it. It shows an experiment that was ran in a theater by a couple who put a game of Pong on the screen, and they divided the folks into two groups, and they gave everyone a ping pong paddle. On one side of the paddle it was red, on the other green, and um, by showing the green side, your side of the pong would go up the screen, and like the red side would bring it down. And depending on how many people had green, it would go up faster, and how many people had red, it would go down faster. They just put these people in a room, separate them into two, gave them a paddle. They didn't tell them what's happening, they didn't tell them the rules. But
Wow.
somehow people start realizing, oh, we're on this team, and then those guys are on that team. Green is up, red is down. And if everyone's doing green, I should do red so it goes down slower, and it like finds that perfect balance in middle of the screen or something.
Wow.
So something happened in that group of people where some decided to show green and some decided to show red to cause it to stop in the right place.
And that's a mechanism of hive mind. It's a voting system of
Yeah.
every individual being a part of the system, participating without having to read a manual, having to go through training, having to, put effort in. Like the most beautiful system that could ever exist is a hive mind situation when there's like such a good design that it feels like there is no design, there is no
Wow.
voting, there is no uh, time that I need to put aside for this. There is no one I need to go to consult. There is no debate I should watch on TV. There is no voting booth I should go to. I think that would be the most ideal system that is feel natural and is organic.
That's beautiful. An idea of a game that doesn't need a rule book and that fully exploits the preferences and backgrounds of its users. I mean, I think some people who hear that would immediately descend into Ludditism, would immediately be like, smash the computers. But I just don't see any other option for like a best case scenario. That
Mm,
sounds like the best layout for one I've heard in the future, that the AI will organically organize us into those kind of groups and
mm.
allow us to find greater and greater expression through it. I do want to shoot over some potential sci-fi technologies because AI is not just taking over our jobs; it is potentially pushing our understanding of the bounds of physics to go all the way to the deep end. And I just want to preference by saying I understand this is crazy, but hear me out. I think the last technology that AI could possibly discover is the ability to time travel,
Mm,
because time travel allows you not only to collect near unlimited amounts of information regarding our past states, but to
mhm,
project and map a course through any possible future state as well.
mhm,
And it seems to me like it could get us there through simulation, through the
mm,
ability to give us, like I was mentioning, our own worlds, so to speak, and allow us to populate those worlds to the greatest degree we can with our preferences, and
mm,
then choose from all of those different worlds
mm,
one world to instantiate in reality.
mm.
And in that way, it would be a kind of time travel, a kind of foreseeing the best possible future. How do you feel about that kind of vision? And does it strike you as anything other than pure sci-fi?
I mean, at this point, yeah, but I think it's doable. I mean, like, if you believe in like the ontology of like materialism versus like what's in
Mm,
your head, like how much is the world objective and how much is it subjective and created in my own head?
yeah.
You could argue there's more inside your mind as opposed to what's out there, you know, like is this glass more real than the concept of drinking, you know, like
Oh wow.
sure I could like feel this thing, you know, like I could touch it, I could smell it, but if there was no drinking, the glass would cease to exist, right? So it's like both in terms of like philosophy of it, but also in terms of like how we perceive things. Like we're animals, everything is, you know, inside our head. There is no colors, it's all wavelengths. Like the world around us is like a pure uh, oscillation of waves and like atoms and stuff, I guess. And you know, like your perception is what's forming it. So
Hmm.
if you do find a way to provide like a complete sensory experience where you're absolutely immersed in this past creation, sure, you could experience the past. Other than that, I think the only possible way to do time travel is if we find a way to kind of like break you down
Hmm.
into quantum pieces and somehow reassemble you, because in quantum physics it's been proven that particles can move backwards in time. So there is negative time when you're looking at like quantum scale. um, so if you find a way to like, you know, like paper shred someone to a quantum scale and somehow rearrange them in a negative time, the same as assembling them back in the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like AGI can figure that shit out, man. That's what it probably should be doing instead of running the country. I mean, we've been messing things up for decades. Like, what's a couple of more decades more, and then we could go back in time and fix everything. We'll be all right. But
Yeah, yeah. Make it better in the end anyway. That's a great point. Uh, as far as other technologies in that same realm, resurrection, you know, let's say that your
Mhm,
life, how do you feel about long-term life extension? First, I
mhm.
should say, would you take a shot or a medical procedure that allows you to double, triple, potentially live forever?
I'm no Brian Johnson, but I mean, like if I'm like 80, I might do it because I might want to see what happens next. But right now, I feel like 80 years is many years. It's good enough for me, and I think like you might even develop psychological problems going beyond that. Like you might, yeah. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's kind of like be careful what you wish for type of thing, right? Like maybe we haven't, yeah, maybe we're not meant to live forever. um, or maybe it will be awesome and like be more mature and you actually consider underage until you reach 100 because you're an idiot and you haven't lived long enough, you haven't experienced enough, and you're not allowed to drink till you're 100. I don't know.
Eh. That sounds like a dystopia for sure.
It could go both ways, you know.
Yeah, yeah. The flip side of that coin would be, you know, like I was saying, resurrection. So
Mhm,
let's say you don't take the life extension, you die, you're brought back to life by the AI of the future through some time travel, some
mhm,
DNA cloning procedure, who knows? How
mhm.
would you feel about that? Would you consent to that kind of thing based on who you are now?
I mean, I have no like, I'm very agnostic. I don't have any belief in like afterlife
Yeah.
or reincarnation or souls. So I'm both like, hey, it could be just the same thing, but at the same time, I'm like, there's gotta be like some damage your body takes when you go through death. Like maybe your memory is gonna be wiped out. I don't know. Like it's like uh we know for you to learn something that neural pathway needs to be repeatedly used. So if that's not gonna be used for a while, I don't know if
Mm,
the memories are gonna remain. So I might be the same body, but who knows? I might not be the same person. Like,
yeah. One of the five things I think about is, are you the same person before you go to sleep and after you wake up?
mm,
You know,
that's
you
a
have the same memories, but it's kind of like you were saying with the drinking and the cup. Um, you know, if I were to wake up, or if I were to wake up the next morning and have amnesia, you
Mm.
know, would I technically be? I don't know. It's a very interesting way to focus on it. What about if uh, somebody said they had the ability to resurrect your loved ones, friends,
Mm.
or past historical figures? Would
Mm.
you take them up on that?
I mean, that's how they get you, right? Like, that's how they get you. Like, it's similar with disability and enhancement arguments, right? From one side, we're like, oh, Neuralink is gonna be terrible because then everyone's gonna, who has the money to afford it is gonna buy it, and then who doesn't, like, whomever doesn't want to do that, they'll be forced into doing it because now they can't get a job because they're not smart as the person with a Neuralink. They don't have the advantage, right?
Yeah.
So then everyone has to do it, and then there's a social divide between those who can afford to do it and those who can't. um, I think how the argument always starts is like, oh, but what if you are incapable of feeling love? What if you are what if you have MS? Like, what if you are incapable of lifting your arm up because your neural pathways is not communicating to your arm? Neuralink can fix that.
Yeah.
To that, everyone's gonna say yes. Like, no one wants to see someone on a wheelchair because we're saying no to this chip in your head. But that's how they get you. It just like starts from what makes sense, and then from what makes sense starts to turn into, oh, cool, but now that you have that, why not, add the whole knowledge in the globe into that?
Yeah.
And why not, install kung fu to your brain like Matrix? Like, and then he does that, and I'm like, well, fuck me now. Like, sorry, I've used the F word on your pod,
Yeah.
but
You're good. You're good.
like, man, like, okay, now this guy went from I can't lift up a hand to being the smartest person ever lived, and he's like inventing the new E equal MC square. Like,
Hmm.
and here I am, like, without this device. So now I'm gonna go get it, and I do it, and it's gonna be just like a domino effect that everyone's gonna do it, and that's just how things work, I think.
Yeah. It's a few short steps from them putting the chip in your brain to them saying, "Hey, we gotta chop off your penis. We got a prosthetic penis for you."
Yeah.
How far is too far? Well, last question, since tomorrow is Valentine's Day,
Mhm.
do you think you could ever fall in love with an AI?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty happy with the person I'm seeing.
God bless.
Um, yeah, they're not as happy with me, I think, but um, no, I mean, I'm excited to take him out tomorrow as a person. I don't think I could relate like that to an AI.
Hmm.
No, knowing that it's been made for me, it's not the same. I mean, like,
Hmm.
for me, it's like you've been trained to like me. So how much of that is that actually real? I mean, apart from the fact that I'd rather be with a human body, like,
Yeah.
um, I don't think I would appreciate if even a human being was forming their whole personality based on my interest and what I like. It would just seem like not authentic, and
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. Artificial, no matter how much they developed or
Yeah, because you've been optimized to fulfill my needs, whether intellectually or whatever, but it doesn't feel the same. It's like
is
I want something who would 10x me. I don't want someone to complete me. I want someone to really like grow me as an individual as opposed to match my interest. Like, they don't have to like what I like, as long as I could appreciate their taste and kind of grow into it as well, and
yeah,
I'd love to be that person for someone else. But yeah.
somebody that would challenge you and that you would be able to challenge, would able to help grow.
In an
Right.
organic way, not in a way that, like, it changes my lifestyle and my individuality, but in the way that uh, they help me experience more in life as opposed to the same. And I feel like with
Yeah.
AI, it's gonna be more like a recommendation algorithm. Hey, you love this movie, so I bet you're gonna like this one. Like, there's not going to be any chance encounter. There's not going to be any fun accidents.
Yeah. Spontaneity. It sounds like you're closer to running away to the mountains or the farm when the AI hits than diving in. Is that accurate, or how much are you gonna
No,
ride
no. I
out?
mean, I use AI tools every day. It's just each their own, I guess. Like yeah, I prefer the warmness of a human being.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. I hope we never get away from that. That definitely sounds like a dystopia for sure. But Ash, it was such a pleasure talking to you. It's so cool seeing the work that you guys are putting out there online. I can't wait to see more of it. And I hope that the future is about fulfilling and uplifting all of us. I think, yeah, that hive mind analogy that you were actually talking about, the spontaneous cohesion, that sounds like the best description of a positive possible future I've heard so far. So thank you
Yeah.
so much for that. It was a
Thanks for
fascinating
having-
conversation.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, cheers.
You have
Well,
a great V-Day.
yes, thank you. You
Yeah.
too. May all of our Valentine's Day be authentic and unsynthetic
And human.
and human. Yes.
Ciao.